Warning: the intro you are about to see contains an example of a suicide note. Viewer discretion is advised.
To those of you who are reading this, I'm sorry I was not strong enough to get through the day. I'm sorry that I finally gave in to the pain that life has inflicted on me. For those of you who thought this was your fault, it wasn't. And for those of you who tried, I thank you. This is the hardest decision I've ever made, but no, I will finally be at peace when this is all said and done. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone, and if it was hard for you to get through that intro, I'm sorry. But today we're talking about a more serious subject. We're going to talk about what's called a mental health emergency. This is the time in the life where someone is making unreasonable and often extreme decisions. And there's certain things that a person can do, both the person in the emergency and the people around them, to help. First of all, for those of you that have never met me, and excuse the wind, it was perfect for filming until, of course, I came out and lit our little ambiance fire. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben. I am an amateur trader operator based out of Newton, Iowa. I'm a storm chaser. I am also a person who has suffered from depression and anxiety his entire life. At the current moment, I am not taking any medication. I am not seeing a therapist. But I still have certain things in place to help me for when my manageable depression and my manageable anxiety goes overboard. What I want to talk to you tonight about is my mental health emergency plan, how it's executed, probably a poor choice of words, how it's done, and why it's in place. So, why do we need to talk about this? Every year, every day, people have a mental health emergency. Some of them don't survive it. There are certain things that could have been seen. There are certain things that could have been done by not only the people around them, but by the individual themselves. So if you're someone who suffers from depression and anxiety, I want you to take my lessons and the things that I have learned to heart and consider implementing them in your own life. I currently live in Newton, Iowa. I am going through my second divorce, and this is an extremely hard time for me. I do have a support system in place. It's not an incredible one, but I do have one. And that's one lesson that I want you to take off right now is get yourself a support system. If you're new to an area, find a church. If you're new to an area, find a friend. Stay close to the people that you were always close to, your parents, your family. Someone that you could have a call on a short's notice. In my particular situation, I have two 911 contacts that can be to me in an extremely short amount of time, other than calling 911. And last night, both of them were utilized. Sorry, it's a hard topic, and I'm going to try not to cry on camera. I've done enough crying in the past 24 hours. So, what keys in mental health emergency can be a bunch of different things. I'm really good at taking stress, and I'm really good at taking pain. And an event last night from someone who used to have absolute control over me that I still need to have contact with for reasons that I'm not going to get into. decided to exert said control on top of me when I was already in an extremely volatile situation, and I got to a point where I had to implement my mental health emergency plan. So I think the big step is, if you're dealing with this, I want to talk about what I do and what I use. It's called the mental health ladder. It's how you keep your emotions in check. It's how you keep yourself on par with what's going on and functional society. So what I do in my mental health ladder is I start with recognition. I know when I'm getting stressed out. I know when I'm getting overburdened with stuff, and I acknowledge it. I can tell you, this is bugging me, this is bugging me, this is bugging me, this is bugging me, this is bugging me. And that's the first step, is recognition. Because if you don't recognize it, you can't come up with a game plan to deal with it. The next rung on my ladder of escalation. So what we want to deal with when I'm talking about a ladder is we want to be able to recognize and implement different things at different situations depending on the stress level. So when I'm saying recognition, I understand what's stressing me out. I understand what's causing me to have my depression or anxiety, and my reaction plan mirrors that. So with recognition, I'm just being verbal. I'm calling mom and dad. I'm talking to close friends. I'm verbalizing, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Recognition is basically what we do every day. This is stressing me, and we talk about it. As the things mount, and it could mount not necessarily because the situation got worse, but because it's being prolonged, we have to take different action plans. And so with me, I had an amount of weight on my shoulder due to life, and some of it just wasn't going away, and some of it still isn't going away. And so with that prolonged stress, I have to start implementing different precautions. So I'm actively trying to de-stress. So I like working with my hands. I work with my hands. I like playing a video game just to kind of distract my mind. I've been playing Farming Simulator and Space Engineers. I like doing volunteer activities, doing amateur radio. So I turn on the radio a little bit, see if I can, hear some foreign station that I haven't heard, or try to make contact with someone. I'm hanging out with people that I'm really close to as much as possible. So family members, significant others. That's the key step. I'm getting more stressed. It's not necessarily that I'm more stressed. It's just that the prolonged period, and I can't be rid of the stress. I like to have fires. Like this right now is extremely calming. The most unnerving part about this is the wind, and the only reason why the wind's unnerving about it is because I'm trying to film. If it wasn't for me trying to film, this would actually be extremely relaxing for me. So it's one of those things where we keep escalating our response with what's going on. Then I had some more stuff get piled on, and for privacy reasons, I'm not going to get into it. And it's not my privacy; it's the privacy of the people that either were involved directly or indirectly, which were causing these stressors. And I'm not going to get into it for them. They know who they are, and if they don't know who they are, then I did a really good job at not being descriptive and pointing it out, or making it too obvious. So we went from there to I recognize I'm about to have a mental health crisis. I recognize that I am steps away from having a mental health emergency, and what that looks like for me is I start shutting down. I go from extremely talkative, I go from extremely open to being closed. And when people ask me if I'm all right, I'm flat out telling them I'm not. And then we get on a very slippery slope for me. When I start to shut down, we very rapidly go into improper thoughts, harmful thoughts, and then ultimately making the decision either A, professional help is needed by volunteering or voluntary or involuntary treatment, and then we get into that point where it's no longer voluntary. So with my plan in place, I started up the rungs. I started recognizing that, hey, I was getting to my limit. I was telling people I am at my limit. And two of my last ditch efforts for me is a direct contact with someone I'm close to, or to drive. And you wouldn't think driving is a good thing with someone that's in a mental health crisis. When I'm having a mental health crisis, driving for me looks like a GPS tractor so people can know where I'm at. And it gets me out and away from the stressor. It gets me physically away from the stressor. So a lot of my stressor was actually the home you see behind me. I needed to get away from it. So I took a drive and I started going to a direct contact, someone that I was very close to, someone I could trust, someone I could cry on. During that commute, I started going to what I would consider my final ends. So this is the time where a decision has to be made. We either have to reverse the direction in which I am going mentally, or we have to get me professional help. And I tell you this, last night, I was right on the edge of saying I can't trust myself. When I got to the individual who ultimately ended up getting my attitude, helping me to get to my attitude to change, I looked at them and I said, this is the lowest point you will probably ever see me. If I go downhill, I need you to call 911. And I made them assure me that if I progressed worse, that they would get me professional help. So fortunately, through a lot of tears, that individual talking to another very close individual that I'm with, so we kind of had a two to three-way communication. I was with one person, they were reporting, kind of telling another one what was going on that was very close to me. My two who I call 911 contacts. They're the contacts I have before we call 911. That's why they're called 911 contacts. They're the ones that actually are supposed to call 911 also if need be. And I got to that individual, I was able to stabilize mentally. And then I went from stabilization, reverting back to my quiet stage, and then ultimately reverting back to talking, and I was able to let it out emotionally in a very healthy way. Crying, if anyone ever says crying is a bad thing, you tell them that they are full of baloney. Crying is a very healthy way to let out emotion. Crying is more healthy than keeping it in. Crying is more healthy than rage, than anger. So I always try to deal with extreme emotions in sorrow, because while sorrow and depression sounds like you're kind of being counterintuitive, if you are with people that care for you, sorrow and depression is the safest state you can be in. Because if you're in sorrow, you're not being aggressive, you're not being, you're not having big muscle, you're not having big body movements. You're more than likely shutting down, clamshelling up, which is safe for everyone. And it's easier for them to monitor you and see how you're doing. So I was actually sitting, not on too much unlike this. I was on a couch, not in this camp chair. And I started verbalizing what was going on. I started expressing how I felt. And I was able to regress back to where I would say is at home manageable stage. Certain things you might want to put into your mental health recognition plan is recognize the level of the level of, I guess, I don't want to say commitment, fear and hurt you're in by terms of what you can do. So like, for me, I will tell you, I'm about to shut down. I go from there to I'm not weapon safe, which means if there are weapons in the house, if there are firearms, anything, I recognize that I should not be near those items. I recognize that I should not be near large knives. I recognize that I should not be near any item that could be potentially used to harm me. I go from there to not driving safe. So if I communicate with someone that I am not driving safe, that at that point means I'm at the closest part of the edge I am. Any further, I have to be hospitalized. And I would actually be agitated with anyone who did not hospitalize me if I was not driving safe. And then it is to the forced commitment to the 48-hour hold, the 24-hour hold for mental observation, so that way help can be needed, because we are in a mental health crisis at that point. That is a mental health emergency for me. So for you, that might look like, okay, you normally are really quiet and you go from quiet to talking a lot, and you're like, hey, I'm not feeling well, I need to talk about this. Or you, like me, you go the opposite, and then you start recognizing, hey, I probably shouldn't be around sharp objects. So like knives and stuff are not good to be around. I'm not sharp safe. Maybe you're not sharp safe. Maybe you don't have to worry about there being firearms around. I'm not sharp safe. Or, you if you have had ambitions in the past of hanging, I'm not rope safe. I'm not string safe. Whatever. You're acknowledging the fact that you are getting worse, and you are telling people, are able to communicate, I am not safe to be around X, Y, Z. And then you have a severity level. So like for me, I go from silent treatment shutting down to I am not weapon safe, which I consider all weapons. And then I go, I'm not driving safe. And then I go, I'm in a crisis. I need help now. You need to call someone. So this is a good way to do it, because if you teach people in your circle, if you teach your emergency contacts, if you teach people the closest to you, your signs and your ladder, especially if you suffer from depression, anxiety long term, like I have. I've been suffering since probably 5th or 6th grade. That's when I think my diagnosis came in. And I've gotten a lot better. This ladder system was actually put together by me and a therapist, where we sat down and we were able to acknowledge, Ben feels this way, he needs to come here. Ben needs this way, he needs to do this. So this is something I actually talked about in therapy. And it's one of those things where I've gotten away from my medication, because mainly it's extremely difficult for me to get a doctor's appointment with my work schedule. I'm not saying that my work doesn't support mental health. They actually are having a mental health month drive right now, supporting all the people who in the company who suffer from it. We've got group therapy. There is a there's a separation and divorce group that I'm a part of because of what I'm going through in my life, so where we can support each other. They are very supportful, but some managers and stuff, once they get a schedule in place, they don't want to deviate from the work schedule as much as possible, and it's really hard to get doctor's appointments sometimes. So I have actually been off my medication that I was on. I've been off of it since January. My actual last time I would consider I was in a mental health crisis was in December while I was on it. And I feel like handling it now, the way I handled it just recently, was comparable to how I handled it on medication. So that tells me, A, the steps are working, B, the medication wasn't the deciding factor in the outcome, because I was able to do it without the medication. So, but should I probably get back on medication? I don't know, maybe. That just depends, one, if I can get into my doctor, and two, if I can get the time off to do it. So don't ever criticize someone for having a mental health emergency. Really support them. The last thing we need when we're in crisis is people ridiculing us, and I'm sure there's going to be people that eating me alive in the comments saying, yeah, you should have been stronger, yada, yada, yada. Well, here's the thing. I'm strong enough to get on here and tell you about what I went through and how I deal with it, so that way other people can deal with it also and learn how to deal with it in another way, while you're sitting there in the comments being a bully. And I also want those people in the comments to remember, most states have laws saying if someone ends up killing themselves due to something you have said or you encouraged, you're going to prison. So with the higher suicide rates in schools and the higher mental health needs in this country, there are laws in place in I think almost all 50 states to where if you are found to be bullying or encouraging someone to commit a harmful act to themselves, you're getting charged too. So before you write that comment, before you go on to the next person trying to be strong and convey how they deal with their life and how they're trying to help other people, you need to remember that. If you go in the comments and you come after me and someone else ends up doing something to themselves because of how you talk to me, you're liable. I'm putting this out here not because I want attention. If only 5 of you see this, and out of the 5 of you, only 1 of you actually gets anything from it, that's my goal. My goal is to tell you and help you as best as I can. But mental health is a really big thing. I mean, we all deal with it on a daily basis. I mean, not many people are in my situation. I am a full-time employee at a bank. I run 3 YouTube channels. I have a small business. On top of that, I've got children. I've got family stuff going on. I'm going through my 2nd divorce, which I don't wish a divorce on my worst enemy, just because of how it mentally drains you and how it affects you physically and mentally. I've got a lot going on right now. And the fact that it took me, I had one 6 months ago, and then I had another one right now, and I'm able to talk about it with everyone here. It means that I'm getting better, and I'm moving towards what I believe my purpose in life is, and my purpose is to help others. So I hope this helps you. Be mindful that your state probably has a mental health crisis hotline. I would put that in your emergency plan. I have it in my phone. That is who I actually call when I get to final step. So if, let's say, I've implemented my emergency health plan, my mental emergency plan, and both my 911 emergency contacts are unable to get to me, and I am at the last straw. Last straw means I need to seek immediate medical attention, or the worst is going to happen. I have the mental health crisis center in my phone and 911. 2 numbers that you keep in your line. Obviously call the mental health center before 911, because if you call 911, they are going to send someone down to take you by force to the hospital, because you have fully admitted that you are not safe, and you fully admitted that you are a danger to yourself, and they will commit you for 48 hours, which is probably what you need, honestly, if you're at that point. But the crisis center actually could be able to de-escalate you without needing that forced commitment. So I'm going to put the numbers for the Iowa Crisis Center if in the description, if I haven't already on the screen. I probably already have on the screen, but yeah, I just want to take a moment. I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you for the videography. I know the smoke's been crazy and everywhere. I should have probably done this a little bit differently. Thank you for hearing me out, and stay strong. We're in this together. We're all in this together. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next video.